Triple S Steel believes in carrying a big inventory, buying in massive volumes, and stocking steel across the country. From California to Tennessee, Triple S is in position to deliver steel to your door quickly, efficiently, and at a reasonable cost. In any dimension you need, Triple S Steel saws, shears, and burns steel with exacting precision. Bottom line, Triple S Steel gets people what they need to build things out of steel.
This one, John and I were talking about this in San Antonio, and he says, "What do you want to talk on in 2023? I said, "I don't need any slides. Schedule versus safety." Is that an issue for anyone in this room? Is it not an issue for anyone in this room? In this today's world of fabrication and erection, and the accelerated schedules, and the wish to get that building up and turning money, and that's legitimate, fast, is a major issue. So how do we reconcile that? And that's what this is all about. My name's Steve Davis. I have a lot of different things that I do. I'm Director of Corporate Services for 2 different conglomerates, Williams Enterprises and Industries. We have 14 companies. One of the interesting things being back in Charlotte is seeing all the stuff that's here because we built the skyline of this city, and the NASCAR Hall of Fame and all the stuff that you look out and walk around the city and look at all the towers that are out here. And it's pretty interesting to go back in time and look at all the things that have been. And one of the case studies we're going to talk about is one of those towers in this city and what happened with it. So we'll talk about that. There's your PDH code. What I've been doing is just taking a picture of them as I go from session to session. That way I can go back later on and add it in. So it's not a bad idea to do that. So this is your assessment question. And it's a ringer, as you can imagine. Is it actually first? Because is there anyone in this room that if you ask management or your safety director or your foreman or your supervision, is safety first in our company? Oh, of course it is. Are you sure? Or does something else take over? And the reality is, this is what we all say is true. And in a lot of cases, it's a myth. I told John, I'm going to make some enemies today, especially if there's any GCs in here. And it's not a slam to them because they're forced by the condition that they're placed in when they bid the project, when they agree to it. And many times it's the owners that are forcing it down. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes they mistakenly agree to a schedule that is unrealistic. So one of the first things we have to determine and make sure that we reset ourselves is that we do not allow all the schedule pressures to compromise the safety in our facilities or in our projects. You just can't do that. There are ways to manage it, and that's what we want to talk about today. What are the exposures? What does it create for us if we let this take over? And then what are some of the action steps and planning steps that we can use to attack this problem? Because it's not going away. Anybody that thinks that this problem is going to go away is mistaken. This is going to get worse. So we have to address it. So the reality is that in a lot of cases, and everybody thinks this is just on construction sites. That's not true. And a lot of times the fabrication picks it up too. And I've had this conversation with our fabrication operations many times and get frustrated because what are we always missing in fabrication? We don't have them yet. Drawings. And it's like, and I've literally stood in front of our workforces and told them this. I said, guys, there's a project and it's going to start. This scope is going to start. The 5A scope starts here. Here's when we started designing and getting drawings. Well, drawings are not here, and they're not here, and they're not here, and they're not here, and it's like, we want to get drawings. We got the, yeah, but they're not finalized yet. Then you get your drawings, and you're here. This date didn't change. Now what's happened? We've only got this short amount of time. We started with this much, now we got this much, and we got to fabricate it because we got to deliver it. It's got to hit the site now. And that's reality. So it happens many times in fabrication because we don't get drawings in a timely manner. How do you plan for that one? That one's good. I've always said this. You can accomplish any big project with enough budget and with enough people. Well, how'd you bid it? So if you don't have that, that set up to handle it in that short time frame, it's going to cost you a problem. You're going to accelerate your schedule. You're going to end up with a lot of hours. You're going to end up with a lot of fatigue. We'll talk about it. So this is what happens when we accept it, when we just allow it to happen. By the way, I see people taking pictures. You can have it. So you guys are going to have these. Take my name off it, put your name on there, steal it, use it, I don't care. Take the message and get it out there. But look at what happens. Accelerated and unrealistic schedules. Way common that we see those. Virtually every project today. We just took over one in Savannah, and it had an unrealistic schedule on it, and we're like, well, we're just going to have to take care of it, but we had to put some specific scheduling together and some manpower to be able to address what was really somebody bid it unrealistically. We had to take it over. So that's one of the things that happens, is we have an ability to do that, to actually look at that schedule and see whether or not it's realistic or not. When do you do that? Let me throw it out to the room. When do you look at whether or not a schedule is realistic or not? Say again. Say it louder. Say it again. Pre-bid, damn it. Because if you do it post-bid, you're screwed. You've already agreed to a schedule. So you've got to cover this pre-bid. Now, poor schedule and subcontractor management. One of the things that I learned from my father many years ago, he was an executive with Lockheed, and he was responsible for all projects, like basically all the aircraft you see out there, before he passed a number of years ago. But he was a scheduler, so he could look at things and determine whether or not it was actually capable or not. And I remember when Dad retired, and he'd been retired for a while, and mom and Dad had the motorhome. They were going around all over the country. And Mr. Kitchens, who was president at that point in time, called me. And he said, "Where's Berlin?" And I said, "He's somewhere in Newfoundland. I don't know where he is. He's somewhere out in Canada." And he said, I said he would call in, and he said, "Well, tell him to give me a call." And so he did, and passed it along. And what happened was they had sent a whole schedule of aircraft delivery to the Air Force, and the Air Force called them on it and said, "That's not a good schedule. It's not right." And they couldn't find it. They could not find the problem in the schedule. They didn't know where the issue was. And so they were like, "Well, call him. He probably knows exactly what it is." And so Dad called me back, and he says, "They want me to come in and take a look at the schedule. How much should I charge them?" And I said, "How long do you think it's going to take?" He said, "For that schedule, for 30 aircraft on this particular project," he said, "probably about 3 days, maybe a week." I said, $25,000 sounds pretty good. He said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's a lot of money." I said, "For a week?" And I went, "No, it's not. Not for that." And so it took him 3 days, and an aircraft schedule is about as long as this room to manufacture one. And he walked down the schedule and said, "There's your problems here, 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 here. I fixed them." And they sent the schedule back to the Air Force, and the Air Force called him back, and he said, "Looks good. What'd you do? Call Verlin?" They recognized his work. They recognized that he knew what the schedule and the timelines and the time and the sequencing of the schedule should look like. All right, why did I use that story? Because it had a damn thing to do with steel fabrication. Because it's one of the weakest areas that I see in our industry is the ability to schedule correctly. And I say it to because I'm also a professor at Georgia Tech. I've been there for 24 years, Hillary, now. And in fact, I just taught project control and project scheduling for Dr. Marks over in College of Civil Engineering last month. And one of the issues that we face, because we're not teaching the engineers coming out of college today how to properly schedule. They don't know it. And then they're thrown into it and they just use what someone else has used in the past as durations. And it doesn't work. So I'm going to ask you to take a very close look pre-bid at your schedule and your durations and your scope. We'll talk about that later on, because pre-bid is where you look at it. Now, the extended work hours are the result of the mistakes. When we agree to a schedule, then we end up, and it's too accelerated and it's too aggressive, then what we end up with is the extended work hours. Well, we got to go to 6/10s. Now we got to go to 7/10s. Now we got to go to 7/12s. Well, what's that going to do to you? You got 3 weeks. I'll tell you what that means in a minute, because I delivered that message one time. You got 3 weeks before it starts biting you really bad. Then we get unrealistic goals. Oh, we can turn over that floor then. No, you can't. I'll give you a perfect example of how this happened. Chris, he's our president of Atlanta Steel Erectors, called me one time. He says, "Hey, we've got to put these light towers on the on the tower down in Atlanta, and they were 14-ton light towers that were at the top of this project." And I said, well, they're not ready for that yet. He says, well, they're going to pour on Friday. We're going to start erection on Monday. Do we have a problem, folks? What's the problem? Letter to commence. Bob, can you get 75% in 3 days? Probably not. And I called Chris and I said, tell him, no way. Even higher release strength, best you can probably get 7 days. You're not going to get a 75% break that quick. Unrealistic. Again, unrealistic goals. Now, what about fatigue? We're going to cover that in a few minutes. Is that an issue? Is it an issue in our shops? Is it an issue in the construction sites? I see a lot of nodding heads out here. Yes, it is. Now, take what Hillary talked about in the session prior to. Let's take heat stress coming up in the summertime and then dump fatigue right on top of it. Now what? Now what we've done is we've created a really bad situation where we're working people long hours in heat conditions, and now it's going to double. We're going to end up with a lot of problems now. So what's the outfall of that? We start having safety incidences and accidents. And you better catch them early as you begin to see the trend start, and it happens. How quickly? I told you the timeline. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of an accelerated schedule. In that 4th week, you're going to see it. You may see one a day is what will happen. And if you see that, you better get on top of it real quick, because those are the little ones that start. It won't take very long before you'll have a bad one. That'll happen. Does quality suffer? Are safety and quality intertwined? Can you separate them? And the answer is no. You cannot break that link. So when you see safety issue, you're going to guarantee that if you're looking close enough, you're going to find the quality issues that are occurring not only in your shop, but on the construction site. Your non-conformances will begin to rise. And then you'll see a double whammy. Now you've got fixes, which are going to require more time, which is going to extend your schedule. You got to stop this, and you better stop it quick. I'll tell you about another case study in a few minutes. This is what the GCs don't understand, is that the schedule actually suffers. And I've watched this real life on a project here in North Carolina right now. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but it's big. And it's a train wreck because they went on this aggressive schedule and they loaded up the job with too much steel. Anybody ever seen that happen? Fabricators, I don't know who you are if you're in the room. Stop that, please. I know why you do it. You deliver steel to the site early because you get paid for it when you can drop it. I know that drill. And then you end up with too much steel on the site. And now we've got a double handle, or triple handle, or quadruple handle. How many times should you touch something? I said this yesterday. Twice. Twice. In a fabrication shop, it's coming in, that's once. It's during fabrication, I consider that a single. And then it's on the truck, that's 3 times. 1, 2, 3. In the erection, how many times? Twice. Off the truck into lay down onto the building. Do it any more than that, you're asking for quality issues, safety issues, accidents, schedule impact, all that. So it's a big deal. Schedule actually suffers, and the GCs many times haven't picked this up. Some of the smarter ones have. If you've got a good superintendent that understands this, he'll see it. He'll realize what needs to happen. Or he won't. He or she won't, and then there'll be a meeting about why are we having so many accidents. Had that meeting before. Basically, safety takes the back seat. Everybody says, oh, safety is first. No, it's not. No, it's not. When the schedule pressers start and everybody starts pushing hard because bonuses and LDs are sitting there, all the things are sitting there, then it really begins to suffer, and safety then takes a very hard back seat. And those same folks all around that site, safety is first. No, it's not. It's a lie. How about we sit down and really talk about what we need to do here? So, what about fatigue? This is from the National Safety Council. And that's a low number. This one's hard to catch if you think about it, to capture what fatigue actually impacts in the workplace. It's about 13% of the accidents that occur out there. And if you think that OSHA hadn't paid attention to this, they got a whole section on their site about fatigue. And that's why I gave you the link. You guys can go look at this. And they've got strategies on there. So does the National Safety Council have strategies on how you manage fatigue. And this one's not in here, but I will tell you that one of the best projects, and Hillary remembers this one, was the Brave Stadium in Atlanta. We had all 5 contracts for that. And that was one of the best managed projects. And at the same time, Mercedes-Benz was going on. I won't go into all that one, but that was like, good one, train wreck. But the safety manager for that site, for American Builders, which was the joint venture that was put together to build that project in Atlanta, was Lisa Kapicic. And she did an outstanding job in managing that. And we're talking about upwards of 2,500 to 3,000 construction workers on it, and a total recordable incident rate below 1 for the project. How'd they do it? Pre-planning. Lots of it. And one of the big deals, because it was being built during the summer, was the schedule, heat stress, and heat stress management. They had a whole program for fatigue and heat stress, and it was not negotiable. You were going to do it. And the outfall of that, we ended up with very little fatigue, incredibly low accident rates. It's done incredibly well. And then juxtaposed to that sat Mercedes-Benz, which had lots of accidents and lots of problems. And one of my quality managers, who actually we let him go to go down there and manage quality for Mercedes-Benz for the 2 years or thereabouts that was there, with our blessing. We're like, go take care of it. He had 18 CWIs working for him. And we kept hearing about all the things that were going on. And of course, we were down there fixing those trusses, which were a mess. It was a design issue. And we saw the number of accidents that were going on down there because they were not managing it like just up the road. They were managing it in another place. So I encourage you to look at the National Safety Council. When we get into solutions, I'm going to show you that they actually have a fatigue management program. You can go steal it and use it and build it for your own company. And I'll show you that. Also, I've captured this slide. This one's really good. You want to take a picture of this one? I would recommend you do that, because this one you can take away. And if you go look for it, you can find it on the internet. But I found this and I was like, that's about as good as it gets. This is going to end up in every single project and every single plant. And we're going to address it and we're going to make this a specific JSA for every one of our projects. What causes it? What's the outfall? What are the control measures? Advice for workers, advice for employees. This is as good as it gets. I didn't create this, I stole it. So you steal it and use it. But this is a major issue, and the fact that it's not going to go away, we have to address it. So you could make this a single pager and literally go talk to everybody and go, let's talk about how we're managing this in our shops, how we're managing on our projects. Are we meeting our goals? Are we taking care of it? Is some of this personal? Anybody in here got enough time to do their job? No. No, you don't. So we're all busy. We all have to pay attention to this and managing a lot of things. And along with this, do what I do. I mean, we were talking about this at dinner last night. The penchant for our workforces, no matter where they're in our shops, and we're coming into that season again, it's summertime, and in the field, and what do our employees mainline out there drinking on the job? Come on. And if you're allowing them to have energy drinks on your job, you need to rethink that. That one's one is a tough one. If it's not an energy drink, what do they typically drink? No. In your dreams, Gatorade. They're not going to drink that. Mountain Dew. Why is that such a problem for our workforce in the summer? Sugar, caffeine out the tail, and you cannot believe what it will do to them. So there are certain things you need to pay attention to, and I've had conversations when I go out to our projects. I'm like, guys, stop mainlining that stuff because it's going to cause you a problem. Bill? Yes. Many years ago, we built the 2 towers that one of the Clemson alumni donated for the hospital in Florence. That's the first time we ran on a project where they banned it. They would not allow you to have an energy drink on that project. Baxter Pharmaceuticals, much the same way. They wouldn't allow anything in the air. So it's a trend that you're seeing out there where they'll just say, no, can't use them. Now, so case studies. Real life. And this one's the one that was here. I won't tell you which one of the towers here, but it's over there. So this is what was forcing them to go to an accelerated schedule. They wanted this on their top-out shirt. And I remember when our project manager, Dana, you know who Dana is. A lot of people will know who that is. Came to me and he said, they want 9909 on their top-out shirt. I said, are you kidding? He said, no, that's the motivation. I said, well, I'm looking at my watch and schedule and I'm going, there's no way. He said, oh no, we're going to 710s. What did I tell him? You have how many weeks? 3. So I admonished the GC, don't do this. 3 weeks later, what was happening? Incidents, accidents, how many? 1 per day. And I happened to be there on one day. And I said, that's enough. And they called and they said, we want to have a meeting about the problem that you're having with incidences. And so I flew up to here, to Charlotte. And I walked in the meeting and they said, we want to know what your action plan is. I said, you mean for the problem that you created? That I told you created? That I warned you that you created, you not to do it? We don't like your attitude. I said, I don't care about that. I said, what I care about is our men on this job getting injured because you put an unrealistic goal out there and forced everybody to get there. What are we as a project team now going to do about this problem? Because we can't continue this. It got fixed. But in the midst of all that, we had a guy go out on floor 35. I remember that, where he actually fell out. Fatigue, heat stress. Anybody been on a clean summer day in the south on a deck? How hot is it? Anybody ever measure temperature up there? Excuse me. You can get up to 140 degrees. It can get that hot up on the deck. And so you add the fatigue of an accelerated schedule, you put that into the heat stress that was in there, guy fell out, ended up in the hospital. He was okay, but he had to go through hydration again, and that can damage you permanently. I almost had that happen. I'm an old adventure athlete. I did triathlons for a lot of years. And one of them that was in Ironman, Florida, cooked me up, 93 degrees on the run. And I didn't cool down for 3 days. And I was hydrated as well as I could be. And the reality was, coming out the other side of that, I was a mess. So it can permanently damage you if you're not careful with it. So this is what happens. This is a great example of what happens when an unrealistic goal is put out there for absolutely a stupid reason. So why am I telling you this? Guard against this kind of goal setting that's out there. Oh, we want this. Stop for a minute. Rethink this. And go, all right, is it realistic? And if you need to push back early. Now, did I make a mistake on this one? And what was my mistake? Well, no, they accelerated the schedule in the middle of the contract. So what was my mistake? Thank you very much. Not pushing back soon enough, because what I should have said is, no, we're not going to that schedule. And if we need to have a meeting about that, fine, let's do it. But what we're not going to do is put our workforce in this situation and cause an uptick in injuries. Somebody's going to get injured or killed out here if we're not careful. I should have said no. That'll happen many times during your career where you'll realize, God, man, I should have said no. I should have said, no, we're not doing that. So, on the tail of this one, almost 10 years later, so we're building a new college campus. It's a technical school somewhere in the South. Had, if I remember, 8 or 9 buildings on it. And same situation. So we went into an accelerated schedule again, agreed to it in this particular case. And this time, most of it was happening in the spring, and then we got into the early summer months, and what happened? Here we go again. We start having small accidents. You got full-time site safety on the job. They're like, well, anybody ever been in that situation? Something upticks, and they go, we're going to Put full-time, if they think that's a magic, solution, put full-time site safety on the project and everything will stop, right? What's the answer there? That's BS. It's worse. So my comment to that GC was, if you think the presence of a single safety person on a site is going to solve the problem, we got a bigger problem than that, because who's responsible for safety on a project? Thank you. Everybody. If the presence of a person full-time is necessary, we have a culture issue. That's it. That's reality. So what was happening is we saw, again, an uptick in frequency. And I began to have issues with that. And then I said, all right, what's going on out here? And it just didn't click. It had been 10 years. It did not click. And so I'm going up to a meeting. I'm literally driving up 985. And I thought for a minute, no, we can't be back here again. And I hit the phone on the truck, and I called Connie. And I said, Connie, well, how many hours did we work last week? Week before. So what are we averaging? 66 last week. We were at 69 the week before. I said, damn. Thank you. Click. Next phone call, went to my project manager. I said, you remember Charlotte? I said, it's been 10 years, and damn it, we're doing it again. And so I arrive at that site, and I go into the meeting, and they're all been huddling up that morning. Anybody ever participated or seen a root cause analysis with the stickies? Yeah. So what does it look like? All directions and arrows pointing at everything, and they had done what they were almost done. And so I walk in the room and I just stood there and looked at it. So what are you doing? I said, I'm just looking at it. I think we've got it all wired up. I think we've got it done. What was missing? Schedule. What else? Fatigue. Wasn't even discussed. And they're running 6/10s. So I said, think you forgot one. What's that? I said, fatigue. Did you even think about that? So we started drilling down on that and talking about the work schedule and talking about the accelerated schedule and what the impact was. Brought up the information, said this is what fatigue does for you. There's multiple sources out there. Texas government actually, everybody who's worked in Texas knows there's an insurance commission there. They did the result. Guess what their results are? Same as the NSC. It's about 13 to 15%. So we're going through this, and I said, all right, I think our major issue here is fatigue. We're in an accelerated schedules. We're 4 weeks in. We're having this. I've seen it before. And I told the vice president who was in the room of that GC, I said, I've seen this before. We're seeing the same thing. It's been 10 years. This is a fatigue issue. So what are you going to do about it? I said, it's very simple. We're going to 50 hours. Period. That was his response. Let that settle in. That was his response when I said, we're going to 50 hours a week for the next month. And his response was this. Here's what I said to him. I looked at him across the table, and I said, I can't believe you just said that. He looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, safety is second. Schedule over safety. And John, there came the title. There's where it came from, was from that meeting. Schedule over safety. he looked at me and I said, don't push me on this. I know your boss. I said, this is non-negotiable. We're going to 50 hours a month. We're done. It's that simple. No. In this particular case, I was a little late on the pushback, but I was stronger on the pushback. I didn't let them go as long as I wanted. What happened? What was the outfall? Whole project went quiet. No more accidents. Is it real? It is. So these are two case studies that are linked by 10 years. What am I telling you to do? We're going to talk about strategies in a sec. Don't let this get out of hand. Not in your shops, not on your projects. Pay attention to it. Remember, it's amazing. It's just like a conversation I had. This, and I will tell you where it was. It was NASCAR Hall of Fame. And we were talking about, we were doing the ballroom trusses over there. And this young safety guy over there was talking about our fall protection. Well, y'all need to tighten it up. I looked at him, I said, you an engineer? He said, no. I said, well, I am. And those are my designs. And we're not going to do it. I said, because you need that 30 degrees. Any engineers in the room that have done fall protection understand what I'm talking about on a horizontal lifeline. You need that at actuation to limit fall forces and to limit the stress on the ends of the connections. This is fundamental design here. And he was pushing on me. He said, well, this is my project and you're going to do it. And I just looked across the table at him and I said, last time I looked, you don't sit on our board, you don't write these paychecks for these men. This may be your project. These are my men. Thank you very much. We're not done. We're not going to do this. Push back. Do not be scared to push back when it's a safety issue. It's got to be legitimate. And this one is. This one is one of the biggest issues we face today. Now, not in the case study, but one that you'll see on a slide in a second. I'll say it again. And I'll use another project, Orlando International Terminal, Landside Sea. We ended up with 55 trailer loads of steel out of sequence that we didn't need. We had a whole yard for storage for steel we didn't need on that project. Why did they do that? I don't have to explain it to you. We talked about it earlier. I know why it's done. But that double, triple, quadruple handling of any material is such a material handling issue. And that's what we do in our industry. I'm sorry for doing that. That is what we do in our industries. We pick stuff up and fabricate it. We pick stuff up and we put it on a building. That's what we do. And try to guard against that. If you see it starting to happen. We saw this happen in a project in Alexandria, Virginia this year. I was out there in December and I saw it and I'm like, we're going to have a problem. I said, and I talked to my project manager. I said, Daryl, we need to get a handle on this. Get this solved or we're going to get somebody hurt. Yep, it happened in January. So get ahead of it. If it's a true safety issue, get it controlled. You've got to pay attention to it. And remember, the schedule drives that, and the finances drive it too. So what are solutions you might consider here? First thing, this is the same admonition I told to my graduate students last month. I had 30 graduate students this year. You know what scares me about what comes out of our college, and this is true of any of them. And we've met a number of our members of our firm are on the board at Georgia Tech, so we've talked to them about it. Guys, we've got to fix this. We're not teaching either our seniors or our graduate engineers how it's really done. We're teaching them too much theory. And Tech's much the same way, and I've had conversations with a number of folks about it and said we have got to get some basic understanding about that. Now, there is something afloat, you guys will hear it announced this week, that we're doing with AISC to provide a 3-year program for people that are new in the industry, coming new into the industry, to learn all the fundamentals, or a good bit of the fundamentals they need to know about steel fabrication, engineering, and erection. We've been working on this now, John, since what? Last fall. And then Scott Melnick and Chris and Luke and I, and we've been working on this for a while. And there's going to be a curriculum where folks, whether it's fabricators, engineers, or erectors, can take some of their younger folks or project managers and move them through. It'll be at the conference. And there'll be a course, just like a graduate course for them. And one of the things we're going to make sure that we do in the middle of that is teach real life. So some of you folks in the room that know how to do that, we may tap you to be part of that, to help our younger people coming into the industry better understand how is this actually done. Code of standard practices are going to be there, fundamentals of welding, fundamentals of bolting, connection design, contracts, legal, all that. First thing, contracts. Anybody in here read one? Actually read your contract, read your scope of work, know what it is, know what your schedule is, know what your call-outs are. Please read your contracts. If you've never been to a contracts class, get one out there. There's multiple folks. We did one for our project managers. We've got 56 right now, project managers. And we actually had just a contracts class for them, part of our mandatory training that they go through. If you haven't been through one, get your counsel involved, learn how to read a contract, what are the watch-outs, what are the issues you need to pay attention to that will cause you an issue. And schedule is one of them. What is the schedule? The next thing is plan, not react. So you've got to get ahead of it and look at what do we need to be prepared for? What does the schedule say? Are there special provisions in the contract? What are they, whether they be safety or quality or schedule related? And let's get this planned and agreed to up front. So read your contract and plan. Erectors, meet with your GC, fabricators too, and establish realistic goals and expectations. When do you do this? Way in advance. You better do it pre-bid, and then definitely post-bid. You need to be having meetings and getting everything all planned out. Now, fabricators, realistic fabrication schedule, sequencings of delivery to your projects. And I know this gets out of hand. I've seen it firsthand where, again, drawings. Suddenly you get your drawings and you've got to rush. Now we're going to be working 60 hours this week. We're going to be working 75 hours this week because we got to get this load on the trucks and get it out to the project. Do the best you can. Meet with them. Try to get ahead of that. But everybody's busy. Is anybody in the room not busy right now? I mean, this is crazy. Anybody that's good right now is really busy. And so you've got to establish the sequencing schedule and get that right. Now, I put it in bold again. I told John, I said, I'm going to make some enemies. Fabricators, if you're in the room, please don't do this. Do not overload the project. The one in Alexandria didn't have any laydown room worth a flip. And the issue with them, when you start overloading the project, what happens with the steel? Is it all on one level? What happens? They stack it. What's going to happen with stacked steel? On uneven ground. Are you going to have stable loads? And the answer is no. You're not going to be able to crib it right. And so you're going to end up with unstable loads. And if you've got any significant depth of wide flange sections, you've got a real problem. They're going to roll. And that's what happens with them. So I'll say it again. Fabricators, realistic schedule. If you need to find an area where you can store steel, then do that. We did that when doing the VA hospital in Tampa. They had an old shopping center that had plenty of room out about a mile from the project. And that's what the fabricator in the GC, in this case Turner, set up, is that, hey, we can deliver all that steel here and then we'll marshal it to the project, because the project didn't have enough space either. So it was a great idea, and it worked, is that, hey, find a remote yard and store it there. It's okay, you can do that, but you've got to plan for that. If you need real estate, go get it, and something where you can not overload the project just because schedule is demanding that you force it down. The erectors that are in the room know that there is a rhythm that you can erect at that's good. And then anytime you try to exceed that rhythm, it's going to cause quality and safety issues. So no matter how quickly you feed the steel, it can only go on the building at a certain rate, especially if you're limited with a number of cranes. So you've got to pay attention to that. Realistic schedules, realistic sequencing. You might need to break it into smaller sequences. Sometimes that works really, really well, is to bring in, sequence it into small sequences, deliver those. Also, be careful about erecting off of a truck. Do I need to explain that one to anyone? One of the towers, 300 South Trine, we did that. That's asking for trouble. So be careful with that. Now, implement a fatigue management program and stick with it. Because I've seen fatigue management programs implemented, that same project I told you about here in North Carolina going on right now. Oh, we have a fatigue management program. And I said, yeah, only until about 3 or 4 weeks and starts interfering with the schedule, and then you abandon it, which is exactly what they did. So implement a fatigue management and then stick with it. I'm going to show you one you can get for free in a minute. Now, adjust your schedule. 410s, or consider rotating 4-3. Everybody know what that is? Everybody knows what 410s are. Does 410s work? Yeah, kind of. They do. I mean, if you know how to manage it and keep your workforce focused for that full 10 hours, not 8.5, which a lot of times, I've seen some heads shaking in the room, you know what I'm talking about. It actually works. A lot of our industrial construction projects for our industrial side of our companies work on 410s all the time. Why do employees like 410s? Because they got stuff to do. So 410s works a lot of times. And then sometimes it goes to 410s and an 8. Anybody seen that? Yeah. And then it goes to 510s, and they go, oh, we're getting behind. We're going to work Saturday, we're at 610s. And this is the schedule degrade you see that's normal. That's a watch out when somebody says, hey, we're going to need to work Saturdays. Did we have a rain day this week? No. Why are we doing this? Because how many weeks you got? 3. That's it. Be careful. So what's a 4-3? Anybody know what that is? All right, I'll explain it to you. We were doing a power plant in Sutherland, Nebraska. We were cutting down carbon steel, coal silos. Anybody's ever been in a power plant? Those are big 7,500-foot silos where the coal comes down to the pulverizer. Pulverizer turns it into this powder, and that's what feeds into the boiler. A lot of people think, they got big shovels of coal going into the boiler. No. They pulverize it into this very fine material, which then exposes a lot of surface area, which burns very efficiently. That's what happens in a power plant. So we're changing these out 2 at a time, cutting the carbon out, putting stainless in. They're going on an accelerated schedule. We're running 13s. Why 13-hour schedules? So we had an hour swap over. It's a 24-hour schedule, guys. You can't keep this power plant, sections of the power plant down that long. So we had 13-hour and then 13-hour. So at points in time, we ended up with about 38 bowl makers on the project doing this work. Then I heard from the project manager, hey, we're going to have to work extra time. And I went, I'll see you tomorrow. And I flew out to Denver and drove back to Sutherland, Nebraska, which is a long drive, and met with him. And I said, so we're going to go on to a 4-3. So what happens is part of the crew would work their 4. 1 week, and the next week they would work 3, and the next week they would work 4. So what would happen is we had a schedule going like this. They're still getting a lot of hours, but what we were not going to do was wear them out. I said, because if we continue this accelerated schedule on this project for this duration, we're going to have a problem. And he says, you know what, we're already having it. We've already had some heat stress issues because this is inside. And I said, all right, this is non-negotiable. We're going to a 4-3. Let's do a swap on these. I said, because people need time to rest and recover. Those are 2 different things. Everybody understand that? You need time to rest and then recover. And so that becomes an interesting thing. Now, the last one, be ready to adjust it when accidents or issues begin to arise. My admonition to you is don't wait. I waited too long over here. I waited a little bit too long at the second one. I won't wait anymore. I've made that call many times now. I've stopped it. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. So I told you I was going to show you a fatigue management. Here it is. You can go get this. NSC.org, National Safety Council, fatigue. Just go search those terms. This will come up. You can download it as a, get this, Word document. And you can revise it yourself, add your company name, make anything changes that you need to, and implement it. It's an outstanding program. It is a fabulous template. That's what's in it. I highly recommend, if you've not done this, put you a fatigue management program together. It's becoming a requirement for a lot of contracts now. They're going to ask you, do you have a fatigue management program? Well, you should. How much of a focus, Hillary, is heat stress for OSHA right now? Guys, if you haven't had a visit yet, get ready. Ed yesterday, for those who were not in the room, the Pat's Assistant Secretary of Labor for OSHA was here, and one of the things that he said was in Region 4, that's us in this area right here, and most of the regions in the United States, just here in Region 4, they're up 100 OSHA inspectors. They've hired an additional 100. They're out there. If you have not seen an uptick in OSHA inspections, get ready. They're going to be seeing you. If you've got any cranes in the air, get ready. They're going to come see you. And you know what? You shouldn't worry about it. If you've got your safety program wired and you're doing the right thing and you're doing your training, fine. Come and talk to us. We're good. Doesn't mean you're not going to find something small, but we're pretty darn good. So that's where you want to be. You're not scared of them. Fine, come talk to us. Avail yourself of your rights. If you've not talked to your own counsel about how to manage an OSHA inspection, you better do it because it's going to get aggressive. But heat stress is a big deal. Fatigue is a big deal, and they go hand in hand. So there it is. Go get this. Take a look at it. You can download it today and look at it. And it is a Word template, which is great. So my admonition to you here to finish up, let's make it a reality. Let's not make it just some cheap words, because we're all good at saying. But don't let the pressures of our industry right now overcome our fundamental goal, which is our workers come to work and they go home every day safely. Don't compromise this, and don't let anybody else compromise it for you. It's your company and your people. Manage it. Get ahead of it. Plan. That's how you do it. You plan for it. I'm not telling you can't get out of an accelerated schedule. I'm telling you can manage it. Everybody hear that? You're not being able to get out of it, but you can manage it. You got to put the right programs in and get the right system in and get the right labor force management in place so that you don't end up with a problem. That's a lot to think about. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Do you think 58 hours a week is too much?
How many?
58.
58 hours. 5 10s and an 8 will work, but you're not going to be able to sustain that for more than about 2 months. Anywhere between 1 month and 2, you're going to start seeing a degrade. I'm seeing a shaking of the head. You've seen it yourself. If you're tracking your performance metrics, you're going to see it. You're going to see it in an uptick in nonconformances and an uptick in accidents and incidents. So you can do 5 10s and an 8. Be careful. You don't have much time. Good question. Anything else? Yes, sir.
We've got a shop that where overtime is not mandatory. So when you have overtime up, you've got the older generation who lived through the Depression, lived through the hard times. You've got the young generation who, because of financials, housing prices, and whatever else, still live home with mom and dad and are quote unquote still surviving. How do you balance fatigue in a shop like that where the old guys who have been there 20 plus years, they understand the dedication, the loyalty to keep the company going. You've got young guys who just, done my 40, mom and dad, still the courage, I'm good.
All right. This is a safety issue, but it is also a production issue and it's an HR issue. I'm responsible for all of those in our company, so I understand this. I have an HR manager, and that to me is a Lisa question. So when you've got an issue like that, then better that you set, based on the schedule and demand of the shop, a set of work hours that are mandatory for the workforce. Rather than, I know everybody likes that flexibility, but it's almost better, and I would admonish you to look at SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers. They've addressed this question before. And then secondarily, talk to your HR manager about how do we accomplish this and do it legally and also do it ethically and correctly for our workforce. Better that you established a set of hours in that circumstance to get you past that push, that schedule push for that project, then open it up and then see what happens. Because what will happen is your young ones will peel off because they don't need it. Some of them may need it because they bought the new truck and they got to make their payment. Everybody's been through this stuff. And so you'll have that same group that will work all the time, and what happens is you're going to fatigue them. So talk to your HR, look at what SHRM says. They've addressed this before. There are solutions for it. Anything else? John?
Just so, how many hours are sustainable for the long run? 45, 48? Is there a magic number?
No, nobody's stupid enough to publish a number like that. But typically around 48 hours is about the common one, 48 to 50. That's one of the reasons that I backed off that project to 50 hours, because I knew we could sustain that. And you can basically sustain that schedule pretty long time, and it won't impact you too badly. But if it passes through the entire summer, it could. So there's some seasonality to this at all. 48 is sustainable, yeah. Anything else? All right, remember, this is available to you guys. I don't care if you steal it and make it your own. Please do. You guys have been great.
If you are interested in learning more and even earning a certificate of completion, visit AISC.org/Steel Academy. And if you believe in the importance of safety in the steel industry, email John C. at steelmergers.com to learn about sponsorship opportunities.